Thank you for joining us today for the first in our series of our quarterly community calls. David and I are looking forward to sharing the time with you today to highlight and recap the progress we made this past quarter and give you a glimpse into what's coming up for 2025 and the subsequent months. If you have any questions, please just put them in the Q&A, and towards the end, we're going to dedicate some time to cover any questions that you might have. In terms of today's agenda, first we're going to recap this past quarter, which was a busy close to the end of a productive year for 2024. And then we're going to take a brief look at the 4 strategic pillars and focus areas of Mifos. And then using that lens of our strategic pillars, look at the forthcoming plans for 2025 across these strategic pillars. So thanks to David for putting together that nice video, which helped to show a photo montage of all the events and happenings we were up to this year, but wanted to give a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the activities this past quarters. In late September and early October, we had the pleasure of attending the first inaugural Global DPI Summit in Cairo, Egypt. So thank you to Co-Develop Fund and others who arranged this great gathering of many dignitaries from multiple countries, as well as digital public goods. It was quite impressive to be there at the beautiful venue in Cairo with hundreds of other individuals looking to advance the adoption of digital public infrastructure. And so it was a great opportunity to not only come together with the sector, but also reunite with other folks from the community. So we met up with the founding members of the OpenG2P team, a number of other collaborators from projects like OpenMRS, and then other DPGs that were in attendance as well. We kicked off the Global DPI Summit by having the opportunity to give feedback on the universal safeguards that are being implemented around digital public infrastructure. And then there was the second in the series of DPG for DPI workshops, which kicked off in Cambridge in August. And then we had a follow-on meeting with this cohort of DPGs in Cairo. And then one of the highlights of the conference was being able to speak on a panel arranged by Liv from the Digital Public Goods Alliance. Myself, along with other digital public goods, spoke about the impact of digital public goods on digital transformation. Then David had the opportunity to give a live demonstration of the payment building block and all its capabilities at the GovStack exhibition booth. And then another great reason why we were happy to attend the summit in Cairo was the opportunity to meet up with our local Egyptian community. We met up with 2 of our interns from Summer of Code, Omar and Zayed, and then we also met up with one of our local partners, Levium. Lastly, we had a nice time being able to take in the sights. There was an evening reception at the Great Pyramid of Giza. David wore his tuxedo for the event. And then the next event I want to recap is the Interledger Summit that we traveled to later in October. This was held in Cape Town this year. We kicked off the Interledger Summit by showcasing the various digital public goods that Mifos has. We had a well-attended booth. We were able to give away a nice record player to the gentleman down there. So it was nice to see the active, vibrant community and showcase all the innovation that our community is working on. We also had the opportunity to give a talk looking at how we can utilize shared infrastructure to deliver last mile financial inclusion. And Akshat also gave a talk on cybersecurity. There were a number of great demonstrations at the Interledger Summit, including one from the PCH team here, the People's Clearinghouse in Mexico. There were also great demos from the TitsaWorks team and the Chaimani team. We had an opportunity to tell our story at the Interledger Summit. We recorded some videos. Here's Godfrey doing that. But in general, it was just a very vibrant audience who was very captive and receptive to the mission and how mutually aligned our mission of inclusive fintech is with that of Interledger. And we were really lucky and fortunate to be able to deepen and forge greater bonds with the Interledger team. We really appreciate Interledger for inviting us to be at the event, and we look forward to attending next year as well. And one last tidbit from the Interledger Summit was just being able to advance more of the collaboration. There are other mutually aligned projects within the Interledger Foundation, and we had the opportunity to meet with members of those teams, and we're looking forward in the coming months to advance progress of that collaboration. So looking forward to working with the Tazama team around integrating some fraud and risk management capabilities into our DPG stack, looking forward to working with DitsaWorks around their DitsX connectors and helping to advance the adoption of inclusive fintech technology for the People's Clearinghouse project in Mexico. And in October, we also had a number of other events in which our community was attending. Thank you to Min from our board for traveling to New York City to speak on a panel at KomunaCon. We also had Rahul, who represented the Mifos initiative at the annual Mentor Summit in Sunnyvale, California. He was there sharing our experience with the program for this year. We also hosted a webinar alongside Bijini and FinTech Yando. Thank you to Allison and David for organizing this. You can find links to that we've shared on LinkedIn previously. We also had Allison from our board attend the Finos Open Source in Finance Forum in New York City. And thank you to Finos for the opportunity to attend there. And then we concluded with 2 additional events. So thank you to Kareem and Soban for traveling to Singapore to represent the Mifos initiative at the Digital Public Goods annual member meeting. There's a number of great sessions there looking at the maturity of digital public goods and looking how digital public goods can better tell their story and advance adoption across digital public infrastructure. And then the last event that we attended was led by Godfrey, who traveled to Paris to speak at the Trust Tech conference. And we also were shortlisted for an award this year. So thank you to both David and Simon for attending the award ceremony in person. David once again brought out the tuxedo. We unfortunately weren't the winners of this year's award, as the focus was more around climate change, but we look forward to applying to this award in the future and other awards to help recognize the great accomplishments of our global community. And then let me pass it on to David, who can recap a little bit about our Mifos Gazelle launch, which also happened towards the end of the year.
Thanks, Ed. Yes, the Mifos Gazelle launch. If you didn't know about it, you obviously haven't been following us on LinkedIn, because we've run quite a high energy campaign, which got quite a bit of traction as well with the community. From 24 hours before, we had a countdowner going on the LinkedIn, and then we had the launch event, and it was great. We managed to get Tom, who's done a lot of work of DevOps, involved. We got Elijah, who's been involved from the very start of the project 2 years ago, as well, giving his views on the project, and we're able to set out the exciting roadmap moving forwards for Mifos Gazelle. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, you can still go back. The whole launch event, 15 minutes long, is on LinkedIn, and I encourage you to do so.
Thank you, David. And we'll be talking more about Gazelle as we look forward to the updates for 2025. And then lastly, in December, we also released Mifos X 24.12. This was released on top of the latest stable release of Fineract 1.10. So thank you to Victor and the FinTech Yando team for coordinating the release and updating the documentation. And within this release, it gathered a lot of functionality and enhancements that had accumulated over the past year, but a lot of it did center around some of the enhancements to the loan module for the Pepper Soup project, including the valuable configurable application logic feature. And we realized that we haven't yet fully demonstrated all these great capabilities and enhancements to the lending module. And so we have a webinar scheduled for March. So if you want to scan that QR code there, we'll also send out the link later on, but we're going to do a webinar doing a deep dive on all the new lending capabilities within the loan module from the Pepper Soup project. So before we look at 2025 and the plans for the forthcoming year, we just want to recap a little bit by the numbers. So this first recap here is just a bit of a joke, but when I was going through Google, I realized that David and I take a lot of pictures together. He was the 4th most photographed person in my photos here. So we have 249 photos together, and he knows I like taking selfies, and you saw a lot of those selfies in the recap. And just a little bit on statistics for our Mifos X download package. We're hoping to have better statistics around all our repositories, but right now, this is just what we have from Mifos X from the WAR file on SourceForge. But what's impressive here is that we had downloads from 161 countries, so we almost have downloads from almost nearly all the countries across the world. But let me pass it on to this montage here, and then David will speak a little bit about some of our other stats.
So this year we've been really present on LinkedIn, as you can see, 137 posts, and more importantly, people seem to be quite receptive to it. 2,700 and something or other, I missed it on the end of the screen, reactions to our posts. So it's really great. We're seeing a lot more reposting of our posts, and we're really starting to get the message out there about Mifos is doing. This year, we also managed to support 18 interns across the Google Summer of Code and the Code for GovTech programs. It's been great getting these interns involved. As we mentioned earlier, we met some of them in Cairo who happened to be based in Egypt, so that was really good as well. And this year, and we'll talk a bit more later about it, we hope to be involved with more interns in more of the programs coming up.
Thanks, David. Yeah, so now before we take a look at 2025, as I mentioned earlier, just going to give a brief overview of those core strategic pillars and the focus areas of Mifos, the 501c3 nonprofit, and how we bring value across the broader Mifos as well as Fineract ecosystems. And so this is a slide that we've used before, but it's held, and withstood the test of time. So essentially, Mifos operates around four core strategic pillars. First off is around our ecosystem. So we aim to be that secretariat hub of the ecosystem, helping to connect supply and demand. And this primarily centers around building out our partner ecosystem. So helping to certify, train, and onboard and create a network of partners who can then advance a virtuous cycle of upstream contribution. And we'll talk more of our evolutions to the partner program subsequently. And then we also act as both the connective tissue as well as that glue that helps to enable collaboration and governance across our various projects. And so this, includes a number of different initiatives, which we'll speak about on the subsequent slides. And then another key pillar of ours is the focus around the product. So while our goal is to enable the community and ecosystem to accelerate most of the product development through upstream contributions, we still need to steward that development and guide a roadmap and ensure we can focus on the needs of financial inclusion. And then lastly, but not least, is around education and advocacy. So as you've seen, that's a primary reason why we go to these events, to speak to our mission, to speak to the value of digital public goods, and to speak to the benefits of adopting open source and the commoditization of the core banking software layer. And so we work to be a thought leader in the space and enable that visibility into the impact of our project overall. And this is another slide that I think we've used before, if people are familiar with. I think it came from about 7 years ago, but it still stands the test of time pretty well and aligned with a number of the different buckets that we focus upon and that I talked about on the previous slide. But first off, we're going to take a closer look at the ecosystem itself. And so as I mentioned earlier, partners are one of those key stakeholders within our ecosystem, as they represent that channel to market of our solutions. They represent the voice back of our customers and users of the platform. And then they're also that lead source of upstream contribution and helping to unlock that virtuous cycle. So right now, our ecosystem really consists of our partner and our partner network that we're evolving, but we aim to create both a marketplace of services as well as an app store to help to enable greater fluidity and discoverability of the various solutions that are out there. And we'll talk more subsequently about both Mifos Gazelle and shared infrastructure, which are ways in which we can adopt and accelerate the adoption of solutions on top of our open source digital public goods. But let me pass it on to David, who's going to talk a little bit about the evolution to our partner program.
Thanks, Ed. Yes. So we've been getting a lot of feedback last year, as you probably saw in some of the photos. We've been out meeting some of the partners in person to understand how the partner program that we run at the moment is working for them. And based on that feedback, we're going to undertake a bit of an evolution of our partner program this year. We're going to really encourage progression more. What we found was partners were initially assigned against the level, and that very rarely was reevaluated or moved on. So we're going to do those annual reevaluations of partners and enable them to progress up and encourage them to progress up the levels of partnership. We're also introducing a new level, the Explorer level, because previously the partner program required that you actually had a deployment live of Mifos to be recognised as a partner. And we realise that's quite outdated as a notion compared to partner programs. And there's a lot of support we can give to those partners that are on the journey with us, installing it locally, doing testing, doing development, but may not even have that initial deployment. And there's a need to work with those, partner with them as they go to market. So that's why we're introducing the Explorer level. We were doing a bit of a review of the cost and benefits, so we'll provide more information of those as well, so that the benefits really do support what the partners need at the different levels. We're also going to be merging what we previously had as our sponsor program and our partner programs, because we think with these new levels and better recognition, they actually align a lot closer together. So we will undertake that to give us a bit of efficiency to be able to do some of the other changes. And finally, we're going to start recognizing different types of partners. So as we said, it was very focused on deployment partners, but we recognized that our ecosystem has grown, and the ecosystem around DPGs and DPIs now actually encourages much more collaborating partners, not just deployment partners. So we're going to expand the program out and really recognize those different traits, whether you be a collaborating partner like another DPG, whether you be somebody that's got an enhancement on our existing code base, or whether you be a deployment or a systems integrator partner. We'll be rolling this out over 2025, so we won't get to everybody in Q1, but we will start that journey, and we look forward to doing that with you. We've also been looking at our volunteer program. If you'd like to go on to the next slide, you'll see the logo on the right-hand side. We've had for a little while, but it's now in stickers. So if you see me or Ed or one of the rest of the team, make sure you grab a contributor sticker off us. This is now going to be our principal way of recognising contributors. We started the monthly onboarding calls last year, and they're going really well. We're getting real traction from volunteers. We regularly, every month, have probably about 10 or 15 new volunteers coming to those onboarding calls. And what we want to do in 2025 is expand that support on from the onboarding calls. So we're going to review and update our volunteer recognition, make sure we're doing much more publicity, calling out stars and things like that as we've done in the past. Review our swag. So as I say, if you come and see us, you can probably get some of the new swag. And we'll look at ways that we can actually assign swag depending on what you do. We want to start recognising progression within the volunteer programs as well. So we're going to work with the volunteers to understand what that means and how we can do it better for them. And also we look to try and organise more meetups with volunteers at events that we're going to be at. So we're going to be updating how we calculate contribution, whether it be traditional code contribution or much of the other valuable contribution we're now getting in from our volunteers. We're going to develop a pathway that actually supports volunteers on their journey from initial volunteering through to being maybe maintainers or mentors on our future projects. And we're going to do better integration of individuals' contributions as well into the upstream code. As we know, it's been dominated by more commercial contributions, and we're going to get that aligned so the volunteers really see their contributions upstream. And we will be launching in 2025 the Mifos alumni portal as well. So there's a way for people to stay in touch as they go across different roles and different things and keep in touch with Mifos.
Thanks, David, for those updates on our partner program and volunteer initiative. So stay tuned for a lot of great work that's forthcoming in the coming months. So the next leg of our ecosystem that I wanted to focus on was to just paint a little bit of context around digital public infrastructure, as that's been a key focus of the community and market development that David and myself and other members of the community have been doing. I know for some of you, DPI and digital public infrastructure will be a familiar term, but I think for many in the Mifos community, it might not be that familiar. So there are a number of different definitions of how you can define digital public infrastructure, and they do share a number of common principles around openness, inclusivity, interoperability, and essentially providing society-wide capabilities, solutions, or systems that can be reused and shared across government. But I think Gates Foundation helps to provide a simple analogy where if you think about physical infrastructure like roads, and then you think about digital infrastructure like digital ID, payments, and data exchange, these can form the cohesive networks to help deliver services at scale efficiently to both the public and private sector. And so we can share more materials and more details around digital public infrastructure, but I think most of our community has been familiar with the terminology around digital public goods, but wanted to give a little bit more context on DPI itself. And then DPI doesn't need to be built on digital public goods, but digital public goods are one of the ways in which to advance the scalability and the adoptability of DPI in an effective manner. And so hopefully you know that Mifos and Fineract are both recognized, as well as the Payment Hub, as digital public goods by the Digital Public Goods Alliance. And so we've been, over the past couple of years, working to cement and position at the country level within governments how our digital public goods can scale the adoption of digital public infrastructure. And if you look closer at the DPI stack, there is, a great amount of consistency around what those foundational layers of digital public infrastructure are. And so essentially those key foundational layers are identity, payments, as well as data exchange. And then once you have those foundational layers, you can build a number of different use cases, whether it's social protection payments, collection of like tax payments, delivering civil records and what have you not. But those key functional layers around payments, identity, and data exchange are the ones that are the focus of the DPI movement right now. And so the one that Mifos is most directly aligned with is around payments. And there's one key area where we like to help to spread the message and focus of that value that Mifos brings to the overall DPI stack. Often when the industry thinks about payments, they're more so thinking about the switch or just being able to actually move that money. But a key area of focus is the actual account. And so even if you have like a modern switch and the ability to move that money, if those last mile recipients don't have a functional transactional account or wallet, they can't effectively participate in that digital economy. And that's where our DPGs help to address that, both by enabling institutions who can't provide these modern accounts to their last mile beneficiaries, and also helping to allow these institutions to connect in to these digital systems. And so we do that in two primary ways. I think most of you are familiar with the digital public goods you see on the right-hand side of the screen, but this is where our Mifos X and Apache Fineract core banking system comes into play, where any of those last mile institutions who don't have the capability to offer or provide a functional wallet or transactional account, they can use Mifos in which to do that. And then they can also layer in additional financial services like lending, savings products on top of that. And we provide, as you know, the core banking system, all accessible through APIs, and then a set of reference customer and online mobile banking and mobile wallet applications. And then the area on the left is where I think some of our community still isn't as deeply familiar with the work that we do there. And this centers primarily around our digital public good, the Payment Hub Enterprise Edition. And so on this thrust of the stack of our DPGs, we focus on two areas. One, at the government level, is helping them orchestrate their payments. So this could be P2G payments, so payments coming into the government, or G2P payments like social protection payments going out. But we provide a number of capabilities like bulk processing of these payments, ID account mapping, as well as just orchestrating the flows such that a government can efficiently enable and utilize DPI to administer payments or receive payments. And then our payment hub can also be deployed at the ecosystem level, where if you're a mobile wallet provider, if you're an MFI or any entity that's managing a wallet in which a payment needs to be sent or received, we can provide that connection layer and that orchestration layer to easily connect into a mobile money API, a real-time payment system like Mojaloop, an ISO 222 based messaging system, etc. And so stay familiar with this screen, and I'll come back to it on a subsequent slide. But one other point I wanted to emphasize just about the role that Mifos plays within the DPI movement. So apart from the value we bring in delivering this ability to provide these last mile accounts, is we've also played a leadership role as the DPI movement has been formulated. But first off, like we were part of multiple, so two and actually three of the 6 digital public goods that were recognized as part of like the Digital Public Goods Alliance Financial Inclusion Community of Practice. So these DPGs were selected based on their ability to catalyze financial inclusion at scale. So from the onset of the DPG movement, we've been recognized for the ability to help to catalyze financial inclusion. And then we also played a leadership role in helping to incubate and grow the Open G2P initiative, which is a digital public good for social protection and beneficiary management. So taking the efforts of Kazom and Sultan Masali and helping to grow those, we then transitioned that to Triple ITV, which is now guiding the growth of Open G2P as a digital public good. We also had the opportunity to be part of like the founding DPGs as part of both the G2P Connect movement, as well as the DPG for DPI movement, being organized by Co-Develop Fund. GDP Connect focused around enabling interoperable standards to bring together multiple digital public goods for end-to-end DPI use cases. And then the DPG for DPI initiative is helping to explore the sustainability of digital public goods right now. And then last but not least, throughout the past year and a half, David led all of our work around the GovStack initiative, where we worked with ITU, DIAL, GIZ, the government of Estonia to design and implement the payment building block on top of our Payment Hub Enterprise Edition. And we'll share more materials about that in the future. But thank you to both the Finnerfin as well as the Paces Labs team for helping us to implement that. So across like the DPI movement, we've been able to solidify and position our digital public goods. And our focus now is to help harmonize adoption of digital public goods across all these players. And then also a big focus right now is this cross-sector initiative called the 50 and 5 campaign, where all these different players like GovStack, like Co-Develop Fund, like Gates Foundation, like the Digital Public Goods Alliance, are all helping to advance the adoption of digital public infrastructure by across 50 countries within the next 5 years. And the role that Mifos plays in this is one, to help to advocate the value that we bring to that DPI stack around last mile delivery into functional accounts. So having that education and advocacy at the country level. Secondly, we collaborate and work together with other digital public goods so we can be interoperable to meet these end-to-end use cases. And then through tools like Gazelle, we're helping to ease the deployment and evaluation of digital public goods at the government level. And then I'll talk about our shared infrastructure approach on the subsequent slide. That's how we aim to scale the adoption of digital public infrastructure. And then the last point I want to emphasize is that this is all done in coordination with our local ecosystem, which we'll touch upon subsequently. So the main reason why I really wanted to focus and give this context around DPI is it has been a deep focus of Mifos, the initiative, and we're really looking to get our local ecosystem involved in both adopting and implementing DPI at the country level. And so the way we bring DPI together is through shared infrastructure. And I want to first off just emphasize the value of the various forms of non-bank financial institutions. Most of our community either come from these institutions or are working to deploy our software at them. So these take the forms of MFIs, SACCOs, savings groups. What I think we recognize is that they are that trusted last mile delivery channel to really help reach those most underserved and those most underbanked. But many of these institutions really lack the capability to provide and have the modern infrastructure to connect into a DPI layer around payments. And so that's why, we're working to be able to get them to have that modern core, to be able to offer that account, to be able to have those 24/7 operations, to offer real-time payments, and then to be able to deliver those functional wallets and transactional accounts that are necessary for effective DPI. And so I told you I was going to come back to that slide. And so on the right-hand side now, you see how our vision for delivering these digital public goods at scale to these non-bank financial institutions is via shared infrastructure. So by leveraging both the multi-tenant architecture within Mifos X, as well as the payment hub, we can provide a centralized instance operating at the country level. And then all these small non-bank financial institutions merely need to connect to a single tenant. So it drastically reduces the cost and complexity of delivering this. But then all of these non-bank financial institutions that do go the last mile have access to this modern DPG infrastructure that we provide. And so this is a slide I think some of you might be familiar with before as well, but we've resurrected it and added a few more details to it as well. But it really shows the power of what we can do through shared infrastructure. So by leveraging those highly efficient architectures of Mifos X and Payment Hub and delivering that in a centralized cloud environment, each individual non-bank financial institution just merely needs to connect. And so first off, they can start by digitizing their core. And by then having that digitized core, they can connect into those real-time or mobile or digital payment layers. And then they can also offer digital channels like mobile banking, self-service banking, and then have better reporting, have better fraud and risk management, be able to leverage the power of AI and what have you not, and do this all at a much lower cost without having to have the IT personnel to manage this complex infrastructure. And then this is a slide where we'll talk about it on a future webinar, but it really just shows that at the base of this foundational pyramid of shared infrastructure is at a policy level, DPI, as well as a technology level, digital public goods like Mifos. And then we're highly reliant upon that middle layer of our ecosystem to act both as the distribution channel as well as the support channel for the shared infrastructure. And then once you have the shared infrastructure, you achieve the impact of enabling all of that value to flow within the local economy. And then in terms of how we can actually co-deliver this, this is where, the call to action is around our ecosystem. We want to work with local system integrators and providers who want to be the boots on the ground to help promote shared infrastructure and to help provide support training. And then we also looking to work with more regional players who could help with regional hosted solutions around this. But our goal and recognition is that there's going to be some upfront investment in each country or region to get that shared infrastructure solution. And we need to work with those top level associations who have multiple MFIs or SOCOs that want to deploy a common solution. And then on an ongoing basis, we can work with the local system integrator and pass on, the sovereignty and management of the solution to the local government and local entity. So over time, it's run and maintained locally, but it provides this modern technology solution that can be offered at a country level to all of the non-bank financial institutions. And so stay tuned. We've got a number of exciting announcements in the coming months of different countries where we're signing MOUs to help test out and pilot this shared infrastructure approach. But we look forward to hearing from any, customers who have a need for this, any associations, any partners that would like to work as system integrators, any country that would like to see this rolled out in your geography. So now that we've looked at the ecosystem, both from the perspective of partners, volunteers, and how we deliver this at scale via shared infrastructure, I want to take a look at our pillar around collaboration, community, and governance. And so as we touched on earlier through our volunteer and internship programs, one of our pillars is around mentorship. And then David's going to talk about the working groups we're helping to formalize. You saw all the different events that we've both been at, but we're looking to hopefully once again roll out and have local Mifos conferences. We work with local innovation labs. We're going to hopefully in the future once again roll out our local user groups in chapters. And then we just maintain various governance tools as well as the infrastructure to help our community collaborate, which we'll talk about in the subsequent slide. Let me pass it on to David to give a glimpse into the efforts of some of our working groups and new ones we're formulating.
Yeah, in 2024, we started the documentation working group, and Ed designed a lovely logo, and he's going to have a challenge to design 2 new ones very shortly. So the documentation working group is great. It's got real cross-community engagement. There's 5 or 6 people that regularly involved within the documentation working group. It's across all of our products that we support as well. And what we're looking to do there is really uplift our documentation. We realised that it hasn't kept pace with all the developments we've done and hasn't kept pace with modern standards for documentation as well. So we're doing a review across all our community, trying to make it a bit more consistent, trying to make sure the right documentation is in place, and it gives the information whether you need, whether you're going to deploy it, whether you're going to use it, or whether you're a partner and need information to even go after sales opportunities. So if you want to join that working group, please do. That working group is already on our Slack channel. You would have seen in general Slack channel just before Christmas, I said, get your thinking caps on. Let's see what working groups people want in the community. There was 2 really resounding answers that came back. One was about exploring what AI can do for the Mifos community and the Mifos ecosystem. And the other was looking at architecture, and that's real cross-product architecture. How can we make things consistent across all our products? So as of now, those 2 working groups are live on our Slack channel. So please go and sign up. And then in the coming weeks, we'll make some announcements and we will get the first sessions together of those working groups. They're really vibrant. I really encourage people to participate. We have no expectations. You don't have to be there every week. You can come as you can. We understand you have other commitments alongside.
Yeah, and a shout out to Rothley for continuing his leadership within documentation. He started out within the Mifos community as just a Google coding contributor, and then was one of our Season of Docs technical writers, and he's helping to lead the efforts of the Docs working group along with David. So thank you, Rothley. I'm not sure if you had a chance to join us today.
So we've also talked about 2 intern programs we took part in last year. This year, we're also taking part in the Google Developer Group's Winter of Code project. So the Google Development Group's Winter of Code project is literally just kicking off now. You can see the timeline below. So the students have already been selected for it, and they're doing their proposal writing. So we'll get their proposals back. We submitted 4 projects for this. 3 of them are focused around the areas of our mobile applications. And one is focused around Mifos Gazelle. There's very detailed project briefs under each of those, and you can go through the website to have a look. But community bonding, hopefully we'll get some really good candidates out there. We've been very lucky in the past with our interns. Community bonding takes place later January, and there'll be coding for a month from end of January to the end of February. And we hope to see some really good contributions back on all of those projects. Moving on to our other intern programs, and these are a little hot off the press. So we said if accepted, I'm delighted to be able to tell you as of today we are accepted for the Code for GovTech DMP 25. We're still waiting to hear from Google. I think that'll be slightly later this month. They'll announce their partnership organisations. But really, there's a call to action now for the community. You know, if we leave it until these programs are starting up, it's almost too late to find the mentors and to find the project proposals and really work with the interns. So you can scan the QR code, which is one side of me, and I don't know which because I can't see on my mirroring. And you can submit your ideas and ask to be a mentor on these programs. As you saw last year, we had 18 interns across the 2. That probably is about the same number as we want to get to this year. I'm not sure we want to do more, but that really is valuable for both mentors and for contributors, and a real way to get things done that might not get done in our community otherwise. So please submit your ideas by the end of February at the latest to us, and please let us know if you're willing to be a mentor. It'd be great to have you on board.
Yeah, I really want to hark upon the importance of the need for mentors, as despite being able to work with all those interns last year, a number of our mentors, you know, both Rajan and Tom, they really had to do a lot of heavy lifting with multiple interns. So we really look forward to having all those experts out there within our community help to share that burden and load, as it really is a rewarding experience to be able to pass that torch on to the next generation of contributors through these programs. So please scan that QR code, and that'll take you to the form to express your interest to mentor, and then we'll keep you in the loop around next steps around both Code for GovTech and Google Summer of Code. Okay, so we're gonna look at the product as our next pillar here. So as I mentioned earlier, you know, we try to enable upstream development across our community and ecosystem. The big focus of Mifos is the stewardship of the product. We're helping to establish that vision across all of our products, which now is not just, you know, Mifos X and Apache Fineract, but we also have Payment Hub Enterprise Edition, Mifos Gazelle, as well as our suite of mobile applications. But we want to ensure there's responsible design and a mission-driven focus around the needs and how our products get built. And then we help to catalyze and cultivate a roadmap to prioritize the requirements and help to usher in smoothly contributions across all the individuals. And so you know, before I get into some of our approach around the roadmap, wanted to come back to this concept that we've spoken a lot about around this virtuous cycle, but also introduce this hourglass approach, which Pramod Varma has spoken about at some of the DPI convenings and gatherings we've been at. So first off, I think, you know, you're well aware, a big focus and a way in which we only believe we can achieve our shared vision of reaching 3 billion Maries is by enabling this virtuous cycle where everybody across the community is working on the upstream platform and helping to contribute back to that common core and helping to share not just enhancements and maintaining the platform, but innovation, new features and ideas. And then the new, you know, addition to this slide is around this hourglass approach to our architecture, where we want to have a very thin middle core layer. So that's built on this mock architecture, which means microservices, API driven, cloud native, and headless. So this is how we commoditize that core banking system. But then by having this hourglass approach with the thin middle, we can enable the community and ecosystem to maintain and build out the core platform itself. And so that's why we at the Mifos initiative like to focus on these underlying primitives for banking and payments. And then that can allow the community to focus around building new features and helping to extend the core through this virtuous cycle. And then at the top of the hourglass, we really need to enable the demand and the innovation of different apps, integrations with other solutions, new user experiences, and whatnot. And so to enable those apps and innovation, we need to have accessible APIs and align with interoperability standards. So this hourglass approach is some of the messaging and positioning we're going to be focusing on around our product stewardship. And then just wanted to talk a little bit around some of the tooling we have in place. I know over the years, as we've transitioned from Mifos to Apache, we started to transition some of our infrastructure away from Atlassian over to GitHub. But we've now started to, or we have moved all of our issue tracking back onto Atlassian and utilizing Jira for that. So GitHub now is just for that source control and managing like the pull requests and code contributions. But then within Atlassian, we're utilizing Jira for that issue tracking, Jira for the project management. We're using Jira Service Desk to help provide the easy to access, support request layer. And then we also use Confluence for our detailed requirements and functional specifications. And then we're also going to be start using Jira Products Discovery for our road mapping efforts. And then around documentation, we're trying to solidify around having single sources of truth for both our user as well as technical documentation. So for our user documentation, that's going to be within Gitbooks. And then for our technical documentation, a good portion of that will be on the Fineract ASCII doc. But then we'll also have the respective READMEs for each of the projects for installation and getting started on GitHub. And then for a better developer experience, we're continuing to use readme.io. Around roadmap, I know we had a couple of conversations around this years ago at one of the Community Overcode or ApacheCon events, but we're going to reintroduce the roadmap framing that we introduced there around trying to look at the level of commitment of contributions that are coming in. So at the highest level of commitment, where it's very likely this is going to get shipped and delivered, is a committed effort. This might be something that's actively in progress. It might be funded by a customer or partner, but there's a high degree of confidence this item will be delivered in a release. And then the next level of commitment is around a pledge contribution. This we estimated about 50% likelihood to ship, but this is typically going to be a contribution that's been pledged by a partner. And so they've made that verbal or written commitment that they want to contribute it, but it's then going to go through the process of helping to discuss that with the community and have the actual development and contribution flow happen. Then the next level down are around planned contributions, where we recognize there's a high need and interest for this. We potentially might have a contributor, a volunteer, or a sponsoring entity, but there's not a great degree of certainty there. And then lastly, we want to make sure we're capturing ideas just to have that wide net of everything we want to capture. So David, Bharat, and I will soon be sharing more details of how across all the different products I mentioned, Mifos X for mobile apps, Gazelle, Payment Hub Enterprise Edition, we'll be utilizing Jira Product Discovery both to capture this input, but provide a much better forward-looking view of what you can expect in terms of new capabilities being introduced. But David, I'll pass it on to you to talk a little bit about the trajectory for Gazelle coming up.
Yeah, so it's great to get Gazelle out the door just before Christmas with our first release. It seems like we've just got over that and we're already starting to think towards our next release. And that's because we're committing to quarterly releases on Mifos Gazelle to get a regular heartbeat out there, and we'll lock content down about a month beforehand based on the maturity of the content going into those releases. So what we're looking to do, well, the first priority for us is end-to-end demonstration workflows. When we shipped release 1, it was just the deployments, but we want to get some end-to-end demonstration workflows within that so people can understand how to use those components that are out there. We're also spending a lot of time looking at DPG integrations as well, and we're going to be going out and talking to a lot of DPGs to see if we can integrate more DPGs into Gazelle and really try and get other DPGs involved in doing that integration with us. So workflow beneficiary programs are some of the ones that have been called out straight away. Hopefully out of the program, code program we just talked about, we'll have support for ARM soon, and that will be an enabler for what we call DPI in a box. I won't spoil that. We'll keep that for the Gazelle deep dive we've got coming up. And we're also going to do multi-tenant installations. You will notice another QR code one side on me or the other. I've still not worked it out. And that is for the deep dive webinar we've got coming up in under a month's time now on Gazelle. So if you want to find more about Gazelle, get a bit more underneath the covers, see code running, actually see things going, I'd invite you to come along, join that webinar with Tom, myself, and some of the rest of the Gazelle developers and find out a bit more about it.
David. Yes, around Mifos X, wanted to take a brief look at what's been sort of committed or pledged at the moment. So in a forthcoming release, we're going to be working on some technical refactoring and addressing technical debt, and we'll talk a little bit about that on the subsequent slide. We're going to have additional enhancements to the loan module coming from the Pepper Soup project. There are some enhancements to savings and overdraft that Advancely has worked on and contributed back to the community. And then we're wrapping up the integration with Bigini for alternative credit scoring. And then right now, in potential contributions that are coming, we're hoping to work with some members of the community around enhancements to the current account, bringing that back in, helping to introduce a more secure layer to connect to our customer-facing apps. And then one of our partners also had a foreign exchange module. And then we have a number of planned items that we can discuss later on. I wanted to highlight once again the upcoming webinar we're going to do around the Pepper Soup enhancement. So mark your calendars for that for the March timeframe. And then around the payment hub, we have a number of ongoing efforts and projects there. We're looking at continuing to refactor the core architecture there and making it more modular. One of those key areas is helping to abstract out the workflow engine, as right now it's built on Camunda ZB, but we're looking to make that more flexible to other workflow engines like Netflix Conductor. Tom and others are continuing to prioritize the performance and enabling better resource consumption. We're building new connectors like for ISO 222 messaging standards, and want to in general increase the ease of enabling mobile money integration, as well as the user experience through our operations web UI. So Rajan, I'll let you come off mute for a moment. I'll just let you speak to this slide for about a minute or two, but we are going to have a deep dive on our mobile app development. Rajan has been mobilizing a strong community of multiple contributors and been implementing a lot of great work across the mobile wallet as well as our mobile banking app and our field operations app. But then Rajan, I will save most of the details for a subsequent when we have this deep dive webinar on the mobile app.
So in a mobile development, earlier we were only focused on the Android side last year, but from the last year, we are totally focusing on Kotlin multi-platform and Compose multi-platform. And our wallet app that, as you can see, is totally migrated from Android platform to Kotlin multi-platform and Compose multi-platform, where we already have published on a Play Store. And as well as the web application for the wallet app is available. You can find it on like a GitHub, the link. And currently we are using the GitHub pages to deploy our web app. And Android client as well as the Mifos mobile is in a transition of migrating to the adopting the Kotlin multi-platform and Compose multi-platform. In a manner. So first, in a first phase of last year, we have migrated our whole code base into Kotlin multi-platform that enabled us to do the decoupling code, as well as others, like a lot of contributors can contribute at one point. And right now we are migrating everything into Kotlin multi-platform and Compose multi-platform. And in a meanwhile, we also created a library that is called a GitHub Action Development Pipeline. So what it does, so we have earlier we were using the manual deployment of the applications like on a Play Store or on some other stores. So right now it has been eliminated, and right now we are using GitHub Actions for that, and we have created a one library out of it. So all the applications using the same code base, having the same interface building and deploying on the different platform at once. And during the development and implementation of KMP, Kotlin multi-platform, we realized and created one template and you can say one architecture for the Kotlin multi-platform that we can generalize, and we can generalize for community. So it's become one of the standalone projects where anyone can in the community and in an open source come together and customize the whole architecture according to their use case and design and directly start building the feature instead of like worrying about how and what are the things need to be set up to build and create the web app or iOS app, etc. So this is the development for so far. We are hoping we are still working on the iOS app store to be like running on the pipeline, and everything is working fine, building fine, and then app works properly, nicely on the iOS app. We are just working on the deployment side, setting up the accounts and all. And if you want to go and check it out, you in a release section of the wallet app, you can do test all type of desktop app. If you have Ubuntu, you can go ahead and download the Ubuntu file, and if you have Windows, you can go ahead and execute, like get the exe from the release section of the project and use any of it. Yeah,
Okay,
that was all.
thanks, Rajan. Yeah, and so mark your calendars, scan the QR code. Rajan's going to do a full hour-long deep dive webinar into everything that he and the other contributors have been working on. And we really want to, help get the community more familiar with all of the valuable mobile app development infrastructure we now have as we're looking to commonly consume the SDK and Fineract client across them, and also implementing a UI library of common visual components. And we're hoping to have a number of interns across our mobile apps once again this year. So thank you, Rajan, for all your leadership around mobile development. And so we're going to close looking at our plans for outreach, education, and advocacy over the coming months. And so just at a high level, this centers around 3 key areas. One, helping to educate and build demand across the industry, so awareness and air coverage of the Mifos brand, partnering with those associations and top-level institutions that have non-bank financial institutions we could work with, and doing this outreach to governments around DPI adoption. We want to act as a thought leader, so collaborating and working together with other digital public goods, helping to be a part of industry partnerships and coalitions, and then also having those conversations with to engage and help funders understand the value we bring in the mission and high impact of our ecosystem and community. And then lastly, we want to document and tell the story around the impact, so recognizing the contributions of our volunteers and users, having case studies around our adoption, and helping to measure the impact of our software. So David, do you want to talk about a couple of the upcoming events on the calendar?
Yeah, certainly. So we've got a couple of upcoming events. The first one is actually tomorrow. As part of the ramp up to FOSDEM 25, I will be on a live stream tomorrow, which has been organised by Mike Schwartz of Glue, with some fellow DPG product owners, and we'll be talking about digital public goods, what we're going to get up to at FOSDEM, and answer some questions that people will throw at us randomly, I'm sure. So that should be fun. So tune into that. The link is below. Equally, I will be at FOSDEM, which is the 1st and 2nd of February in Brussels. We'll be on table 10 in Building H. It's going to be quite a fun event. There's going to be lots of people there. If you're going to be there, please do come and say hi and maybe collect some of that swag we mentioned earlier. In terms of all the events we do, a reminder, we have an events calendar that says all the events that people from the Mifos team will be at. So please do check it regularly, especially if you're going to an event, and do say hi to us. We're going to be a bit more organised on our webinar series this year. We've got a lot of exciting webinars lined up. You can see 4 mentioned here straight away that we got on the calendar, but we want to do more webinars with partners as well. So please do get in touch with myself or Ed if you're a partner and you want to demonstrate some specific functionality you might have related to the Mifos ecosystem. We'd love to have you on a webinar with us. So please do get in touch with me for that. As we did last year, we've got our volunteer webinars up and running. So as volunteers sign up, they get told about the next webinar and can register and come along for onboarding. And we set out our schedule for the year. We really are organised this year. So we've got the schedule out there, and we look forward to seeing new volunteers there. And finally, just a reminder of our community events calendar. So all the events that Mifos is running, webinars and everything else is on our community events calendar. So please go to that and find out what's happening and come and join us.
Yeah, and one thing we're going to be kicking off again is our community spotlight outreach. So we have a number of different blog posts where we reach out to you, the community, to submit questionnaires and responses to a number of questions to help tell the story of the impact we're having. So if you're interested in being featured in one of these blog posts, please reach out to David or myself. We've got the Powered by Mifos looking at the solutions built on top of Mifos, our user in focus looking at those financial institutions and how they've deployed the software. We have our partner spotlight to help shine light on the system integrators and their teams. And then we're going to start doing our monthly recognition of our star contributors. And then we also want to start having technical topics on our blog. So if you have an interesting topic you'd like to share your expertise on, please reach out. And then one other thing we're bringing back is codenaming each of our releases with a Marie. So if there's an individual borrower from the institution you're working with, which you'd like to highlight and be a focus and be our shared vision of 3 billion Maries, please share that. Oh, David, do you want to talk a moment about the 2030 Vision campaign? I'm losing my voice for a second.
Certainly. We're getting to the top of the hour, but yes, we're going to be looking a bit deeper at our 2030 campaign over this year, and we're going to put some more content out there, probably some more webinars to go into a bit more detail. But really what we want to do is get back to our core 2030 campaign, really get back towards how we're going to address providing connectivity, those 3 billion Maries that we keep talking about. We've got some grant updates as well. We've got 2 grant updates to let you know. As you've probably seen on our LinkedIn recently, we've got the NLNet NGI Zero Commons Fund, and we'll be kicking off that work late January. That's looking at type safety projects. And then the other one that we're involved with is the Floss Fund. So those of you that have seen the Floss Fund announcements, then what we're doing is making sure we have all our funding manifests, which is how it's all driven, up to date for each of the projects that we manage. And that will mean that we're going to make some top level repos for our projects. It doesn't really alter the code structure at all below, but it does enable us to put those funding manifests out there to be able to get funding in, either whether that be directly from the FOSS campaign, who look at it quarterly, or whether it be from other funders. That the aim is they will start using those funding manifests to work out how to represent back to open source projects. And I believe that brings us to the end of the content that we have directly to share with you today. We will be have been recording this, and we will share that recording on our YouTube channel. If you're not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, it's the Mifos Initiative on YouTube. Please do. We regularly upload content, and we will be doing more content afterwards. We'll also put it on the general Slack channel. If those of you don't know where our channel is, I will put it on the Slack channel for you. So thanks for pointing that out, Hassan. We'll get that on there. And we'll also send an email out to everybody that's registered for this event and tell you where you can get the replay afterwards. In terms of questions, I think we have a few minutes for questions, Ed. The first question we have is from Laban. He says, is it possible to pre-package the Helm charts for Payment Hub as the main dependency hosted by Finafin is down? Yeah, we are aware that. We became aware of it in December. We are working behind the scenes on that. If you have a particular file that you actually need, just get in contact with me and I can point you in the right direction to get it now. But yes, we will be updating the dependencies on Finafin. Most of them will now be on Mifos JFrog instance so that we can fix those images. So thank you for that question. Ed, we've got a question from Hugo, how can I use Mifos core banking and payments as an MSB, fintech, and system integrator? I'm based in Canada, but have branches in the Caribbean and Africa. Can I deploy it now for testing purposes or live? I want to participate and understand Mifos from the top and bottom.
Yeah, so I think you could either just take the download package or one of our Docker images and deploy it in your own environment, or you could utilize Gazelle to deploy a test or evaluation instance. And we also have a link from our website if you wanted to sign up for a trial sandbox too. But please be in touch directly, Hugo, and we can support your team in getting installed to test and use it for whatever use cases you have. So.
And we have a question about the Snap channel. I think that's actually my English accent. For those that haven't realised, me and Ed are separated by several thousand miles. So I'm based just north of London. That was Slack channel, I was saying. So if you're on the Mifos Slack, and again, we can send out the link if you're not on Mifos Slack, but I suspect most of you are. There is a general channel, and that's where we make announcements, and we will put announcements such as the link to the webinar and the link to the recording of this event within it.
Yeah, and I think James had a comment or question around clarification of the roadmap. And yes, the roadmap we're speaking to is that Mifos X roadmap and features we're guiding there, but we're aiming to coordinate and gather feedback that can lead to upstream contribution back into Apache Fineract. But recognize that that's the roadmap we're speaking about. So thanks for that comment, James. So, yeah, and I think the one other point just to make, apologies, I had issues with the screen sharing, but mark your calendars for the next upcoming community call, which is going to be on April 29th. So we're really happy that everybody registered to join, and we're looking forward to having these regular gatherings of the community online to keep you informed of all the goodness that our community and ecosystem is up to. So appreciate all the contributions that you make, and we're looking forward, David and I, to working more closely with each of you these coming months. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.